I got this. Let's bring Jake Fischer in. Go ahead, Jake. Jake, I'm gonna clear the floor. We're gonna welcome in Jake Fischer because my man has got something to say.
Hey, Jake, what's up, man? KC,
how you doing?
At King KC, you know what I mean? So last night, let me just say, got a little emotional. I got a little impatient last night. And we have this conversation a lot with guys like yourself, with guys like Sam Amick. And you guys are certified, verified. Like, you guys know people in the league. You talk people. You don't make stuff up. You report what you hear. So when you mentioned the whole thing, and you said it for weeks, like the Kings were trying to get back or were dedicated to getting back in the first round, it was never Jake Fischer is lying. It's who's telling Jake Fischer this? Is it an agent trying to have an angle, or is it the Kings trying to get that? Like, who's telling this? So last night, when it was like, I told the guys before, I drafted the tweet at like pick 12 because I was antsy. But I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait. And then when Miami drafted and that Pelicans-Hawks trade happened, that's when I got impatient. And I said, who was the one telling him this? Who? And then like 45 seconds later, Shams comes on there and says, the Kings are about to draft at 24.
So Jake hit you with the eyes.
And Jake got me, and I got a salute. He got me. I earned that one. I learned that.
You know, it's such a stupid thing, like breaking this stuff, because it's just going to come out, right? Like that. But I think part of what we try to do, and what I've always tried to do previously, but now with Stein at the Substack, is to try to give fans, Kings fans in this example, a general idea of what to expect, because it's more fun to kind of like go to a restaurant and know the cuisine than just like, we're going into the draft and we're going to have some type of meal to take away. You know what I mean? And especially if you're a team that doesn't have a first round pick, I think it's probably exciting to know that your club is looking to get into the action. Of course, what you're talking about, the frustration of, well, you know, if you're going to do this, do it already. And if you don't do it, I think then it's even more frustrating. That hope that was dangled in front of your face is taken away. But yeah, I have some people who know some things about Sac, and I know that you're a low-key Knicks fan too. So that's, you know,
I love Jake Fischer.
I'm a Knicks supporter, Jake. I'm a Kings fan.
Hey.
I'm a Knicks supporter.
Jake
Shout out
Fischer,
to the Knicks State.
welcome on this show anytime.
There you go. Shout out Trista Crick. Shout out Trista Crick.
Yes,
Always.
indeed.
Jake, there, our guy Matt George, who will be with us later, Locked On Kings, he noted, I'm curious what you know about this, that the Kings actually had, the reason my partner was so impatient is Scott was actually looking, they were hoping for specific players, and they had, you know, a few guys on their list. And from what we've learned out here, Jake, curious what you've heard, they actually had, I don't want to say multiple deals lined up, but they had multiple places they were confident they could jump in the draft if they needed to.
Yeah, that was the sense I had as well going into it. I don't want to like run roughshod with speculation as to where they were going to go, but the two teams in that, or the two players that teams in that range, for example, were like Orlando took Jace Richardson. They wanted Jace Richardson, obviously, when there was kind of some thought around the league that OKC at 24 was a good spot for Sac to get in there. I know the Magic were a bit not concerned, but it was on their radar. Like, oh, is it going to be Jace? Of course, it did not be. But I think generally for this draft compared to other drafts, there was just such a variance in the rankings of these guys. I mean, we had kind of a quote unquote top 8, which that got disrupted with Kamal Malawach falling down 2 spots. But still, I think that was relatively chalk. Like the first 7 names that went, not necessarily in that exact order, but those were the 7 names people were looking for. But then after that, it was a total crapshoot. And so because of that, a lot of teams like Portland obviously showed, like Washington did an A team. You know, I think even Memphis, if there wasn't really a trade up opportunity for them, like if Cedric Howard goes 10, for example, maybe Memphis is actually even trading down. So I think the board was so fluid, and a lot of teams were saying, I'd never heard this number of teams. And I don't have a number off top of mind for anyone being like, how many, but a lot who were saying, yeah, depending on how the board breaks, we could trade up or trade down. Like that was like kind of rife throughout the second half. So the fact that Sac was looming, I'm sure they had several spots lined up of like, okay, this team, if our guy's not here, we know we have a deal with Sacramento on the table. So I'm sure they had a lot of business that was kind of being set up, and that to kind of put, peel everyone back behind the curtain a bit is also how you start to find out some things about what teams are doing too, right? If they're calling 4 or 5 teams with the same initiative, and even just 2 of them tell me, hey, Sac's trying to do this, and then you can check it with some people who would really know about who they're going for or who's in the building, then that's kind of when you start to get your story together.
Yes, sir, man. Jake Fischer, man, who got your boy last night, and I deserved it, even though I didn't at Jake. I didn't at him, but I deserved it. I was
someone sent it to me. To be fair, I had this group chat, high school friends who just are so ready to pile on me when I deserve it, and then are also ready to defend me whenever they think someone needs to be defendable or whatever the verb would be. And I got sent that because it's draft night and the spotlight's on. And honestly, after what happened while we're in this open, vulnerable spot here, after how I flubbed some things last year, a lot of people were texting me yesterday, hey, good luck tonight, to the point where I was suspicious. I was like, come on, now I feel like a charity case. So it's good that it all kind of worked out.
To be clear, Jake, we don't break stuff. We don't report stuff. We have broken stuff. We have reported stuff. And Jake, I can tell you first, we don't like it. Yeah. We do not like it at all. It is not fun. It is not enjoyable. And it is, it makes your heart beat a little bit different when tweets go out, when those words are said over the air. So we completely understand, 100%. Man.
100%. Yeah. I mean, honestly, you guys do such a great job. The De'Aaron interview you did in the middle, I forget when exactly it was in the timeline of that whole saga, but like that's the peak of local journalism to me. Like you guys just crushed that stuff. So I'm an admirer from afar myself.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
So with the Kings, and we talk about that draft night and how it seemed like, from everything that I heard, it seemed like that specific players they were looking at, and if they were there, they'd move in there to go get them. If not, they'll kind of play back and maybe even not even go into the first round. Do you think that's how the Kings offseason is going to be? Like they're going to be cautiously aggressive, right? Where if they're targeting specific players and specific needs for that team, and if it's there, they're going to be aggressive to go get it, but they're not going to just make change for the sake of making change. They're willing to bring as many people back as they need to if it's not the right time. Is that kind of what you're hearing?
Yeah, I think, Scott Perry and Joe Dumars kind of got grouped in together as this old guard coming back in when they both got hired. And Scott Perry has so far clearly shown much more restraint than what his counterpart is doing with the Pelicans. And I think also both situations, to go back to that parallel, are interesting, being that these are, the Kings, just to zero it in here, it's obviously a roster that still does have a lot of talent across the board. Like forget about the equivalence of the talent with the contract in the case of a Zach LaVine, let's say. But I think generally speaking, like just who is a good NBA player that have unique skill sets or elite skill sets or plus skill sets, that's up and down this roster. So I think because of that, and the record also wasn't exactly what you'd want it to be, and the fit of these pieces have been suboptimal, you're going to be able to have a lot of conversations. Like when you have a lot of B- to B+ players, for example, those are the types of players that aren't going for a Desmond Bane price, or even the price thresholds similar to that Boston's setting for Derek White, for example. So I think naturally, just maybe this sounds like a couched answer, but you're going to have a lot of interest if you're putting these players on the board. And for a new front office that has been out of the game for a bit, as well at the top, it makes logical sense. It's a business. It's unfortunate, but to just put out your players' names and see what they're worth if you don't know, because you haven't been calling about those guys. So I think all those conversations to make this to a close outside of Domas and Keegan Murray, I think will happen. And I think that doesn't mean there's going to be a fire sale, but I think that they will be looking to be opportunistic if plus value deals end up presenting themselves.
And so that's where you come into this next part. Monday's the start of free agency, and Casey and I think a lot of Kings fans and reporters have started to kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together, and it's starting to wonder if Malik Monk is around next year. He is a massive crowd favorite for sure. But when Scott Perry laid out what he thinks the principles of this basketball team is going to be, I'm not really sure that Malik fits that. He's also an asset. He's a good ball player, and a lot of people have their eyes on Toronto and Emmanuel Quickwick, guys that have a history with Scott Perry. Scott Perry, excuse me. You heard anything about that? You are we losing Malik?
Can't give a definitive answer right now, but definitely that Emmanuel Quickly idea is certainly out there in the ether. Yeah. And I think, to your point, Malik Monk will have a market because his contract, what's he at, 18 off top of head? Is that, above the mid-level, and that's kind of the ballpark right now, this whole offseason, right? Every free agent, pretty much outside of one or two lucky guys, depending on how the sign and trade market breaks, you're looking at how much of the mid-level you can get. And so teams are looking at player contracts in relation to that. So I don't agree with this, but there's a consensus around the league that Terrence Mann, who just got kind of salary dumped, quote unquote, in that Atlanta deal for Porzingis, he makes $15 million-ish across the next 3 years. So people on the league are automatically like, oh, above the mid-level, bad contract. So you will have some teams by that logic who look at Malik Monk, see 18, and say, it's north of the mid-level, we're not so interested. But the teams that will be more focused on adding for talent and for specific needs, especially in the East right now, it's obviously so wide open. Anyone thinks that they can make one or two moves and really factor into being a home court team in the playoffs. I think Malik Monk is going to have interest for sure. And I think the fact that the guard market right now, like if Nickeil Alexander-Walker goes back to Minnesota, there really isn't so much in their prime age talent. Like the best guys on the board are D'Angelo Russell and Chris Paul and Malcolm Brogdon and Russell Westbrook. Like there isn't that 26 to 30-year-old guy who could definitely fill it up for you guy really on the market. So I think there will be a market for him. To pinpoint exactly where right now, I mean, I'm still trying to get ready for a draft show tonight for the second round. But yeah, it should kind of crystallize, I think, over the weekend.
Well, we know, like you said, you got another round of the draft that you got to get ready for, man. So we appreciate you taking out the time. Before you go, I mean, I gotta ask, what's going on back there, man? What's going on behind you, man? I'm a sneaker guy myself, man. What's going on? What we got going on back there?
We got two J's, two Jordan 1s, and my Blazer. I'm trying to get the camera.
We can go wide view. There we go.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Yeah. Those are the turbo greens are my Eagles game day kicks, and I don't know. I don't get to
like the Eagles thing, but I can't say nothing because y'all the Super Bowl champions. So I can't say nothing.
Put some respect. Jalen Hurts, the truth. Yeah, I went to that game. I've been to the Eagles have not lost a Super Bowl that I have attended. So there you go.
Stop you go. Going.
Well done. Well done.
No, so I went with my brother when we won in Minnesota. Freeze my ass off there. Then we didn't go when we played Kansas City the first time around because we wanted to be in Philadelphia to run roughshod in the streets. And that didn't work out. So my brother kind of forced us to go to New Orleans. Not that I need to have any reason to go. Too much. I love New Orleans. And my hot take is that the Super Bowl should always be in New Orleans. The fact that the stadium is walkable is incredible. And New Orleans is incredible in its own right. So love that city and Super Bowl for 59 forever.
Good stuff, man. Hey, good luck tonight, Jake.
Yes,
and I mean that in a good way, not in a hey, don't do anything crazy
Thanks,
way.
Man. Thanks, man.
So tapped in. We really appreciate you, man. Thanks for
appreciate you guys. Appreciate you. Light the beam.
Yes, sir. You heard him. That's our man Jake Fischer right there.
Good stuff.